You got to brave the weather through all of the storms. We've got to
So glad you're with us live from New York, the belly of the News Beast, every weekday. AFA Today on AFR Talk, Kevin McCullough, and officially no longer under a media embargo. I'm able to tell you my thoughts, answer questions, and give you my perspective on what is slated to be, well, I think it's going to be an important piece of film, whether you agreed with it, whether you disagreed with it, whether it wins an Oscar, whether it does $1 bazillion at the box office, or whether it doesn't. I think some of the circumstances around this film are unusual, and I think because of that, it is news. I told you the last film that the director made, Darren Aronofsky, was Black Swan. The last film that the studio that put this movie out made was The Wolf of Wall Street, which is another vile, horrible, hideous, very bad film that's based on some true story of some Wall Street guy, and Martin Scorsese directed it, and there was all this hoopla about it. I think it was nominated for several Oscars. Again, the question, do we want Paramount, if they're going to make future movies, do we want them to make biblical stories, or do we want them to make those kinds of stories? And I think that there's greater ways to use stuff that you may not even agree with 100% of all the time anyway. Like, I was talking with one of my producers yesterday. I said, I think this would be a great assignment because there's nothing objectionable in the film. There's no moral compromises. There's no bad language. There's no sex. There's none of that is objectionable. And you're going to go, you could take the family, you could go see this, you could come back, you could read the chapters of Noah together, and you could say, okay, tell me what they did and didn't have in there that is faithful with the biblical record. Just a little, family fun, digging into the Bible, getting to know it a little bit more. Because I honestly believe this. I don't think people remember the story of Noah as biblically as they think they do. I think most people think of Noah as some sort of Sunday school story where you have the little flannel picture people you put up there, and there's the 2x2 animals, and there's the big boat that looks like, the wooden version of the Love Boat or something, and it's all propped up on. By the way, the specs that they did for the ark on this were really exact. They were really precise. And it's an impressive thing for the eyes. I told my wife when I got home from the screening, I said to the lovely bride, I said, if this was a story about Superman, if Superman was Noah, Christians would flock to the theaters to see this. They would be going by the busloads. Can you believe the new action picture that's clean and it has a good message and it's about redemption and all the rest? And they'd be like, this is the kind of movie Hollywood should make if it had nothing to do with a biblical character. But because there's a biblical character there, and because these people have been out there saying this stuff that is not in the final film, there's this quandary, there's this confusion. So I said, well, I'm not going to, and I called the studio this morning. I said, I'm going to tell my listeners exactly what I think about it. I'm not gonna say it's a good thing. If I don't believe it, I'm going to say the parts of it that I like. I'm going to tell you the parts of it that I don't. I'm going to answer people's questions, but I'm not going to. No studio invites me to go see a film and then just gets an automatic applause line at the end of it. I don't do that for Christian films. I may not always give my opinion, but I'm not going to sit there and sing praise of something that I don't think is meritorious of it, regardless. So that's what I wanted to, and so I checked with the powers that be, and I even spoke with Tim Wildman and said, hey, he said, that's fine, Kev. Just, make sure you tell them you're speaking for yourself. We're not taking a position on this movie. We're not holding some sort of, a counsel on it. We're not going to tell people what to do. So I just want you to know I am speaking just for myself, but I'm not beholden to anybody on it, which is why I think you can get good, honest information from me about it. Let's talk to Carl in North Carolina. Hi, Carl.
Hey, I just want to apologize for yesterday. I came off like a fool to you. I respect what you do and everything, and I do appreciate the knowledge that you do put out for everybody. I suffered from PTSD and everything from the military.
Carl, I don't remember what you did, so the forgiveness, and I'm not sure it's mine to give, but no worries, brother. We're all good. What's your thought about what we're talking about today?
Well, last week I was reading on the internet and watching TV and stuff, and some of the things that they were talking about was they're blowing things totally out of context on what the scripture even is and everything. Because I study my Bible a lot, and so you say the general message actually is pretty biblical and everything on it?
Well, that's a good question. And Carl, thank you for your call. And again, the humbleness it takes to offer an apology on national radio, that's profound, Carl. So please know that whatever you did, it didn't like ruin my day. So there's no forgiveness necessary, but I accept your humility in offering that. And I want to thank you for always wanting to do the right thing. That's a good thing. Okay. Is the movie biblical? Okay. Here's kind of my bottom line on this. The actual story of Noah is told through this movie. The biblical story of Noah is told in this movie. They actually start in Genesis 1. You get creation kind of all the way up through Noah in this movie. You get a literal interpretation of the 7 days of creation, which I was shocked by. I did not expect that, but I was glad to see it happen. You get Noah, being called, and God doesn't speak audibly. So I'll say that. And if you interpret Genesis as God speaking audibly to Noah, then you may say, well, that's not biblical. But if you don't think that Genesis says that he did it audibly, that it could have been in some other way, then it's completely consistent with Scripture. It is clear that the cause of the flood is caused by man's wickedness and sin. It is clear that Noah is instructed by God to do this, to rescue, he calls the innocent, but that's not much different than what Genesis says when he says that Noah was a righteous man. So innocence versus righteousness, some people could have an argument with that, but that doesn't bother me. I'm okay with that. They go into the ark. They have the flood. There's a couple of creative things that happen on the ark. We don't know what happened in the ark. We weren't there. There's a couple of things there that I think are for the movie's sake. But at the end, you have the wives for Noah's children all exiting the ark. You have Noah's family all exiting the ark. You have Noah who kind of loses his way, plants the vineyard, gets drunk. You have all of that. You have Ham going off at the end. And then there's the promise and the rainbow where God pledges that he will not destroy the earth in that manner again. And the rainbow is the final image that you see. So everything that I can kind of, the basic building blocks of A to B to C to D, they're all there. The Noah story is all there. Now, there are some other things that you may have bigger problems with. You've probably heard a little bit about the rock people. What are the rock people? If you saw Lord of the Rings, you may be thinking of the Ents, the trees that walk around and talk to each other. That's kind of what they look like. Aronofsky's asked about that, and he said that in Genesis 6, where they're talking about the fallen angels, that the way he pictured them was that these were the fallen angels. They were no more beings of light, but that they were sent to earth by God, and that in going into the earth's surface, they took on this kind of molten covering that then did not allow them to be free like they would be if they were still angels of light. So there's that element. It's a little creative. It's not necessarily in the text. There's a lot of stuff read into it. It's not there. I don't think it detracts from the main message of the story as being this thing. When I went back and I read more about the word, and I'm going to butcher how you say this, but the Nephilim or the Nephilim or Nephilim or however you say the fallen angels, that word, and the core of the word means fallen. There's four different versions, according to Answers in Genesis. There's four different versions of what happened to those men, what they meant, who they were. Were they giants? Were they the roots of the Philistines people? Were they fallen angels? Were they some sort of like half God, half man? Who are they? At the end of the Answers in Genesis commentary on the whole thing, they say, here's the four views. We don't take an official view on it. So, I mean, even in that, there's obviously some speculation about who these fallen angels are, what they represented. But one thing that's clear in the text is that they're big, they're huge, and these creatures are large. so there's that. There's a couple of other things about how Noah perceives what God called him to do that he kind of gets off the path and then gets back on the path in the journey on the ark. But we weren't on the ark. We don't have any narrative from the ark. There's nothing in the ark about. There's nothing in the text about what happened during the time in the ark. So we don't know what Noah thought. And again, you're asking Hollywood to envision a story that they can put on a screen so that people can understand the mentality and psychology of these people that come out. I will say this. The conflict that Noah has about God's call on him is genuine. It goes all the way through the film. I don't think he even understands fully at times what it is, and there's some very stark reality. Noah is not a Sunday school story. People died in massive numbers because of the wickedness of the day through a fairly violent means, a flood. They were wiped out. And so it's not an easy story when you really think about it. It's not an easy story to digest. Now, does this mean that that I think that this movie is jot and tittle of biblical interpretation? I don't. And I've mentioned some of the things that are in there. But I encourage you, go back and read the first 8 chapters of Genesis. Do read them before you go. Read them when you come home if you're inclined to see it. Make it a small group effort. If your Sunday school or small group are having this conversation or going on about it, but don't base things on ignorance. Don't do that, please. I'll take a few more of your questions, and then I'll give you one last thing before we go. Wes in Texas. Hi, Wes.
Hi. Really enjoyed the show. I did
Thank you.
Did get to view the movie last night in Conroe, Texas. I was surprised.
I was corrected about that. It opened last night, not tonight, so there are some people that have seen it.
And, I went into it with an open mind. I knew the director directed dark movies, and, so I was expecting a dark movie. And, there was, a few things in there that I had to dig back into the Bible and correct myself. But overall, I think people really need to see it and encourage others to see it, because that's the only way, we can get these secular movie producers to make these type movies. And I know God is Dead is a great movie, but those movies are just not going to get distributed like a major motion picture. And for people to be out there being disgruntled about the movie because there may be a cuss word, which are not, I know they don't use, they call God the creator in the movie, which I didn't have a problem with that. I mean, that's
one of the names of God in the Bible.
Yeah,
so
yeah. So I've heard other people talk about it. I'm just saying, please, go see it and before you start tearing it apart, because the movie was packed last night. I mean, it is a depressing movie. I like uplifting movies, and in to see Russell Crowe's acting performance, especially when you can hear the cries of the people outside the ark.
Yeah,
I thought he did a tremendous job. I mean, I really.
Well, and Wes, the thing that was going through my mind in that part is, how would I have responded if I'd been Noah?
Oh my gosh! I don't
think there's a way to really grasp what this man was called to do and to try to live in his shoes. Wes, I'm thankful for your comments, and it's interesting to see how perspectives change. Again, people have been out there talking about this for 3 months, not knowing anything about what they're talking about. I think it's important that you base things on facts, not on speculation. Randy from North Carolina. Hi, Randy. Welcome.
Hi. Love your show.
Thank you.
My husband and I, we saw Noah last night, and we had some mixed emotions about it. You kind of touched on what I was going to ask about the strange rock things they called the Watchers and the fallen angels. I had a little bit of questions about that, being the fallen angels from heaven, and in the Bible where it talks about.
Well, let me recommend that you go back to Genesis 6, verse 4, do a study on the word that you find there, and look at what the different commentaries, biblical commentaries, have to say about this. And again, I'm not going to tell you what to believe about it. Come to the decision that you hold for yourself in terms of what that is. But I was like Wes, the last caller. I was reminded that I didn't know everything about the Noah story that I thought I knew when I went to go see it. And I was glad that I went back and reread. And I'm really glad, as much as anything, Randy, that people are now talking about a story from the Bible. look, let's be very clear. If major studios that put out Wolf of Wall Street, which is a vile, disgusting movie, and Black Swan, which is a vile, disgusting movie, if major studios put out that kind of garbage and then they create a biblical epic that at least academically they try to stay true to the text of the Bible as they understand it, and they did hire some biblical consultants to come on, some pastors and some other people to try to fine-tune some things. But if this fails financially, do you think they will make more of them or less of them? Or more or less of the vile and disgusting types of films? As someone who's kind of not really fully on the inside of that industry, but as someone who has a lot of contact with it, I will tell you that the more we can encourage them to do the right thing, the more they'll be inclined to do it. The question will be, are we going to base our feelings about it on presuppositions and false claims by people that have not seen it? Or are we going to be what we should be, that is a binge thinker that takes in the information, understands for ourselves what is there, and then make the decision for ourselves about what you agree or disagree with? And if you're even afraid, well, I don't know if I want my kids to see something that may not be strictly biblical, you go see it, decide, and then decide whether or not you're going to take them. But don't do it on an absence of information. So thanks for your patience. I know I didn't answer very many of the questions. I'll try to answer more of them on Facebook if you have them. Kevin McCullough, have a great weekend. Brian Fisher and Focal Point is next. And then, of course, we'll be back on Monday right here on AFR Talk with AFA Today.